Welcome to the Mid Week Tease with me, Adelle Onyango, where I share some random and not too random thoughts on things. And in this episode, let's talk about something that starts to happen towards the end of the year. You start to feel like you didn't do enough this year. You didn't grow enough, you didn't earn enough money, you didn't heal enough, you didn't achieve enough. And I want to sit with you for a moment because that feeling it's so much more common than we like to admit. Now, every December has a strange way of placing us under a spotlight because suddenly everyone is sharing their wins of the year, their highlights, their big moments, and then you start thinking, so what did I really do? And sometimes instead of reflection, what shows up is shame. You start replaying all of the goals you didn't hit, the chapters you didn't close, the things that didn't change. And it just becomes very easy to start believing that something's wrong with you. I almost went down that road. I almost picked up shame instead of reflection. And I started looking back at the year because this year, in terms of business, Q2 was rather slow because, and I don't know why we do this, we look back on a period of our lives and we only remember the bad or the uncomfortable. We fixate on it. And so for a moment, I was going to say, oh, yeah, this was that year that 7 years in business, first time I had a tricky quarter, right? And then I had to quickly reframe and say, okay, but didn't you in Q1 land one of your biggest clients? Didn't you premiere your film in Q1? Didn't you host a podcast with an international organization that had you interviewing one of your personal heroines in Q3? End of Q2 into Q3. And I was like, oh my God, actually, yeah, there were so many things that I set out to do that I did. And I kind of had to bring myself back into order and say, girl, why are you only focused on what didn't work? And why are you so hell-bent on shaming yourself, right? And even if this year didn't have all of these key moments that I'm saying, like all of what society looks at as huge moments, I mean, I've had years where I felt like I was standing still when everybody else was sprinting. Even when you're standing still, that doesn't make you a failure. You know what I mean? Like, your achievements could be more internal. Sometimes I like to say, just waking up is incredible. It's not an achievement, it's a blessing. And I'm like, wow, I'm still here. That's great. You know what I mean? And so in this episode, I want us to reframe a couple of things. First thing we need to reframe is that growth is not linear. This idea that growth should happen in a perfect straight line. When you're getting more money, it's just increasing like that. When you're healing, it's increasing. More stability, linear. More confidence. Every single year, it's increasing. That is such a lie. I keep on telling you this, and I hope it really lands. Real life is not linear. It is loops. It is spirals. It is detours. It's pauses. It's U-turns. It's resets. It's pivoting. You know what I mean? And sometimes the year you think is empty is actually the year that's laying the foundation, right? It's doing the quiet work. It's doing the inner strengthening, the pruning. And just because it wasn't loud doesn't mean it wasn't meaningful. The second thing I want us to reframe: you did more than you think. Here's something that I really want you to really hear. Survival itself is effort. Showing up, even when life was heavy, is effort. Choosing yourself in small ways is effort. Setting boundaries that shook your whole world is effort. And I almost wanted to start crying there because just yesterday, I was talking to a close friend about an experience I had this year where somebody disrespected me. somebody shouted at me. This isn't their first time doing it. And this is the first year that I responded and said, don't you ever talk to me like that. And it sounds like such a small thing, but I stood up for myself. That's effort. That's something I have to remember I did in 2025. Even resting is effort, because most of us weren't raised to rest without guilt. So think about one thing you did this year that didn't get applause, but mattered to you. And just remember that you did so much more than you think. The third thing I want us to reframe, and I've said it was it last week's episode or the week before? Feeling behind doesn't mean you are behind. A lot of this I didn't do enough feeling comes from invisible comparison, right? So you don't even realize you're comparing yourself to someone else's pace, someone else's access, someone else's journey. But you are. Truth be told, you are. Because when you say I didn't do enough, you've defined enough based on what somebody else is doing. And even sometimes that somebody else is a previous version of you in a different time context. Still not fair, still not good to do that. Timelines aren't universal. Milestones aren't universal. And where you derive your worth, your self-worth, is definitely not universal. So you're not late. You're just living. So tonight, I want you to try something different as we walk towards the end of this year. List 3 things you survived this year. List 3 things that you tried. And then list 3 things that you learned. Not achieved, that you learned this year. You'll be so surprised by how much this year has shaped you. I'm going to repeat that because this is your homework. List 3 things you survived this year. List 3 things that you tried. And list 3 things that you learned. Not achieved, but learned this year. And maybe this year didn't unfold the way you hoped. Maybe you didn't show up as the version of yourself that you dreamed of, but you're still here. You're evolving, you're growing, you're becoming, and that counts. It counts for a lot. I'd actually love to hear from you. If this episode resonated with you, in the comments, you could drop one small thing you did this year that you know deserves recognition. Let me know about it. Wherever you're listening to this, there's a comment section. Drop it. I love hearing from you. And if this entire episode resonated with you and you know somebody in your life that you love who needs to listen to it, share it with them. Thanks for listening to the Mid Week Tease, a Legally Clueless Africa production. Episodes go out every Wednesday, and you can learn more about us by going to legallycluelessafrica.com.